Hello and welcome to another episode of It Came From the Page. And yeah, it's the end of May, so that marks the official ending of the horror reading event Horror MAYhem. The final week was folk horror. Did not get to read a lot of folk horror, so I'm just going to talk a little bit about the folk horror I did manage to read, and then I'm just going to talk about the month overall and have a good chat about that. So first off, I finished a short story collection I started in week 2, the Gothic week, and that is the Cornish Tales of Terror. Luckily, it's actually, it's kind of a combination of folk horror and Gothic horror. Some of the stories in this collection are folk horror, other stories in this collection are Gothic horror, so I thought this would be a great time to pick it back up and finish it when I was kind of sabotaged during Gothic week. This is not a long book, but the print is like really small, so this took a little bit longer to read than I was expecting because it's kind of deceptive and it's got really small print. Overall, great collection of short stories, all set in Cornwall, which is a section of England, and some really cool stories in here. My favorite of which has to be Daphne du Maurier's The Birds. I actually did not know that The Birds, which is the Alfred Hitchcock film, was based off of a story. And yeah, it's based off of Daphne du Maurier's short story, The Birds. And I first learned that I was listening to the podcast Books in the Freezer, which had the Bookubus on. And this is like an older episode. So she was going by Hey Little Thrifter at that point. That was a great episode of that podcast. And they dropped that fact in it. And then literally the next day, I come across Daphne du Maurier's story in this collection. So I thought that was kind of a nice little synchronicity. And I had a lot of fun reading these tales. And I thought it was a really good short story collection. So I recommend onto this one. Other book I read, which is a really small one, and this one is not deceptive. It's as small as it looks. This is The Executioner, which is by Jay Bennett. I did not know that this was actually a YA story. And in that case, it was fine. Like, the folk horror elements are kind of loose. It was not as folk horror-y as I was hoping, but it was a very decent little thriller. And, you know, it's about alcoholism, about guilt. Those were the kind of the main core tenet of the story. And it was just fine. It was just a good book. And sometimes you just want to pick up and read a book that you can read in a day, and just have a good time. This is not great. It's not terrible. You're not going to have your life change, but you're going to enjoy reading it. So if you ever find this in the wild and just want to read a pretty decent thriller with a good ending to the story and some pretty decent prose, yeah, I'd recommend this. The main story is there are a bunch of kids coming home from a party where they've all been drinking, but they have one designated driver, and during the course of them going home, one of the kids who is drunk is like kind of like fooling around and causes a car accident and feels like really guilty about that because the person driving the car, who was the designated driver, dies. And it's all the little output of how that goes within this small community, and then someone starts to kill off the people who survived that car crash. It's not like the story is not gonna change, like blow your mind as far as the reveal. Like, it's not that surprising, but it's a pretty good reveal, pretty good story, and I just had a good time with this. Not gonna change your mind, not gonna do anything spectacular, but a very good read and a very quick read. And the last book I read is The Haunted Forest Tour, which is by Jeff Strand and James A. Moore. I read the audiobook for that, and that is a kind of a folk horror story, but it's also very much a supernatural monster story. So basically the plot of this book is that all of a sudden, in this small town, a magical forest appears. Like, just overnight, this entire town is just consumed by this forest, and like it's a violent consumption. Like, these trees just like grow up and into people and kill people, and like all these people die from this horrifying forest. And then this small area of America gets covered with this dense forest, and then it it just so happens that with the appearance of this forest comes all of these mythical monsters with it in the forest. And the forest is pretty large, but it's pretty contained. So they end up creating basically like a quote unquote kind of Jurassic Parking it, where they watch the perimeters of the forest. Nothing comes out of the forest, so they set up these like trams to go through the forest to kind of like give guided tours of this like haunted forest. And the story takes place on Halloween, and predictably something goes wrong, and there's more going on than how it appears. This is a story that is absolutely bonkers in that, like, the character stuff is serviceable. I thought it was fine. Like, I thought the characters were fine and enjoyable, and I enjoyed following their journeys. But the meat of this story is just how many different and varied monsters appear in this book. It seems like every 2 to 3 pages, a new creature appears that should probably just be its own book. You got dragons, you got ogres, you got lizard ladies, you got scorpions with human faces, you got 10-legged spiders who fucking do terrible things, you got mold monsters, you have translucent fish that will fly and attack you. You have weird orange-looking aliens that kind of look like spandex suit greys, but they're orange, and they babble and do clicks, and then they bite you and stuff. Giant birds. Like, and none of that is a spoiler, because that's not even like a tenth of the crazy creatures that appear in this book. So it really is one of those stories where the pacing is great. It's very well paced. I've read a few other James A. Moore stories. I had not actually read any of Jeff Strand's stories, so I will have to check that out after this. But the bulk of this is a really fast-paced, action-filled, gore-filled monster fest about a tour gone wrong. And more stuff happens. It just keeps escalating, and things keep expanding and going crazier and crazier. And you are just left going like, wow, that was an experience. And, you know, it's not going to change your life, but it is like full on. If you are a person who just loves monsters and just loves to be introduced to more creative creatures and then see them destroy people, yeah, this is probably the book for you. I really thought it was kind of like a mix of Jurassic Park and the very end of Cabin in the Woods. Spoilers for Cabin in the Woods if you have not seen it, but the ending is kind of crazy for that, and if you have seen it, you'll know what I'm talking about. It was wild. I had a good time with it. There are some dark stuff that happens near the end, and it gets kind of torture-y that I was kind of like surprised about the ending. Yeah, I just had a good time with it. That's kind of folk horror adjacent, although it is kind of like a mythical dark wood, so that at least counts. Overall, I had a good time in Horror Mayhem. Unfortunately for me, I was kind of sabotaged by my health during the month. So if you're not aware, if you're a new viewer, and there are actually quite a few new viewers, I'm surprised. I think I recently got over 100 subscribers. So thank you. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for watching this video. But in 2020... like September of 2020, literally September 11th. I know, wow. I had a very serious stroke, and after that stroke, I have had like a lot of long-lasting health issues. So I get like brain fog really bad, like always. And my right side is very, very weak. Like I can't lift anything over like 5 pounds with this arm. And they ache a lot. There's a lot because it's like all nerve damage. So the nerves, like there's a lot of like consistent pain that happens throughout that. Also had my gallbladder removed in 2020. 2020 was I had my gallbladder removed the following year in 2021. So that was fun, recovering from a stroke and then getting your gallbladder removed. And oh man, then they had to do a little heart thing to plug up a hole in my heart. Like, it's been a rough 2 years, health-wise, and I have not recovered yet. Do not know how much recovery will happen. As such, I have a very limited stamina just in general. So for me, it's like me doing this video will probably like exhaust me for 4 to 5 hours afterwards. Like, I'll get a lot of brain fog and I'll have to take it easier after doing this because it's a lot of talking and a lot of trying to get my points out and everything like that. So it's one of those you can't really tell on the videos, and I edit around the disability a lot, where just because I had the stroke happen in the speech center of my brain, so like my I will occasionally get caught on words. So okay, you'll notice jump cuts once in a while, and that's because I get like caught on words and like get all like mush mouth for a minute before I like recover. But oh well, that. But to that point, when it rains, it's really bad. So once it starts raining, my oh god, it's bad. So I am pretty much like bedridden and like can't do much, and I'm sore all over, and the barometric pressure changes just destroy me. So usually if I'm doing like a theme month, I have a bunch of audiobooks on the go, so I can just lay in bed and listen to an audiobook to like kind of keep reading when I'm not able to. But for Horror Mayhem, I started and got into it so late in the game that I didn't do that pre-planning. Like, for example, for next month, which is June on the Range and the Slasher month, I have a whole bunch of audiobooks that are like, if I can't get through what I put on my TBR, I have a whole bunch of audiobooks on the go. So I'm prepared for rainy days when I'm feeling the really, really crappy and bad. I was not for this. So both Cosmic Horror Week, both Gothic Horror Week, and then there was quite a bit on this week as well. The rain and the weather was making me feel like crap, so I didn't get as much reading done as I could. And to kind of elucidate and to kind of talk and to kind of illuminate just how bad this month was as far as health goes and how I was feeling. I listened to the entire Stephen King Dark Tower series on audiobook. Yes, it was like about 1.2 times speed, but like that's still like a lot. And I usually listen to audiobooks when I'm feeling pretty crappy. So I've had a bad health month this month. So I didn't get to as much as I was hoping, and my TBR switched a lot because I'd have the moments where I'd be like, well, I physically cannot read today. I won't be able to get to this book, and just kind of a lot of editing in that regard. So I had a lot of fun with this event. I really liked seeing what other people were reading. I was just a little bit disappointed that I wasn't able to read more. Oh well, there's only so much you could do, especially when you have like rampant brain fog and your entire body is like giving you very aching pains. It kind of ruins it kind of ruins reading a little bit. So if we do this next month, if this happens next month or in the future at all, I will be better prepared to kind of work around it. And I just gotta say, the Bookish Bryants who created this event, they did a great job. I love seeing all the people who were kind of exploring horror stuff that hadn't explored much horror stuff in the past. So I was really happy with how this month turned out just from watching YouTube. And there's a lot of new recommendations I have personally. I just wish I would have got more read, but oh well. How was your Horror Mayhem if you participated? If you didn't participate in Horror Mayhem, how was your month? What did you guys read? What was your favorite reads of the month? For me, my favorite reads were definitely Nightwing by Martin Cruz Smith. That was by far my favorite of the Horror Mayhem reads. And then for Dark Tower, it was Wastelands, Wizard and Glass, and the final book, The Dark Tower, were my three favorites in the Dark Tower books that I read. And all four of those were 5-star reads this month. So I got some really good books in. So yeah, just hope you guys have a good day, and let's hope for no more rain. Bye!